This is the Ted Wallisham Podcast. Brought to you by Tom's Place. For the finest in men's clothing at unbeatable prices, it's Tom's Place at 190 Baldwin in the heart of Kensington Market. Tom's Place will suit you. And Halenda's, the meat people. Enjoy their award-winning products at selected Metro, Sobeys, Fortinos, and Foodland locations. Halenda's, the way sausage should taste. And now, here's Ted.
My guest today is a musician. He is a record producer. He is also a composer of television and film. And he is my former partner in a television show that we did back in the 1700s called It's Only Rock and Roll. He is Fred Mollin. Hey, Fred, how are you?
I'm good, buddy. Good.
You know, I was thinking the other day, and I just received the latest CD that Fred has done, has recorded. It's called It's Great to Be a Kid, Fun Songs About Life and Living, Fred Mollin with his friends. And this was done because you were pandemic bored and you missed your grandchildren.
Yeah, I mean, you know, and it's not the most recent project I've done, but it's definitely it's the first time I've ever done an album of kid songs that I wrote completely. I've done a bunch of stuff for Disney, but yeah, I was locked down in the first year of the pandemic in Nashville and was missing my grandchildren who were 3 and 1 in Toronto, and I couldn't get to see them. Mm-hmm. And I was sort of worried about them, thinking, you know, my God, they're not going to have anything sort of bright and comforting to listen to or look at. And so every morning for about 12 days, I went to my studio and I wrote a new song. And I wrote basically songs about things they would look forward to as children. You know, like for instance, you know, I had a song called the Yummy Song about the joys of finding things you love to eat, and you know, the first time that you're driving in the car with your parents or your caregivers, and those kinds of things that we look forward to as young children. Yep. Which frankly, Ted, we're being taken away from them, I guess, and still are to some degree.
Yeah. Well, the first song on the CD is called Playtime. And the second one could be one of my favorites. It's called the Kitty Cat Song. I can't remember who is the woman who sings in that song?
That's my fiance, Karen Richmond.
There's a kitty cat that I know, whose face is as white as the snow. And the kitty goes meow, the kitty goes meow. Oh, the kitty goes meow.
What a great voice. She does a great cat.
In 1987, she played Gidget in the new Gidget.
Really?
I did the music for that series in 87. Yeah.
You know what? I was thinking to myself, you know, it takes a different kind of special creative mind to be able to both score the soundtrack for 2 Friday the 13th horror films and a CD such as this one, It's Great to Be a Kid. Yeah. I mean, do you have multiple personalities, Fred?
No, I don't have a multiple personality disorder, but I do have the ability to do different things. Yeah, I mean, I honestly, you know, they're all gigs. You know, you just take the gig and you do it.
Okay. Do you have a preference of writing music for artists and for yourself, or composing for television and film?
I'm really done with composing for television and film. I did it nonstop. Literally from about 85 till 2001, and then moved to Nashville to go back to making records and producing others, which is what I felt I did best. Mm-hmm. So, but to answer your question, I do have, there's a certain ease that I find in writing for young children. Yeah.
It's interesting because I recently, I don't know if you know Bill King. He's a musician here in
Of course.
Of course, you would know Bill. Well, I mean, and he's been a musician for 60-something years of his life. And over the last number of years, he's taken up photography, I guess in the last 20 years or so. And now he's starting to write. And he wrote 2 books during the pandemic. And he says, you know, the music part of me is kind of leaving now. And now I'd rather just spend my time taking pictures and writing. Mm-hmm. And I thought that's interesting. Somebody who builds an entire life on focusing on one main thing suddenly moves away from that.
I mean, certainly I've heard of people who do that and do it splendidly. I'm still a musician, and a musician first and foremost. So all of my musical life still continues. But, you know, I do have other things I'd probably like to dabble in, but not like Bill. He's changing some cool gears.
Yeah, for sure. Just to give people an idea of the artists with whom you've worked as a producer: Jimmy Webb, Johnny Mathis, Dan Hill. Of course, you were part of Sometimes When We Touch That multi-billion selling single. Billy Joel, Natalie Cole, Gloria Estefan, Barbra Streisand, America, Vince Gill, Amy Grant, B.B. King, Carly Simon. My gosh, Carole King, Jackson Brown. It's just the list just goes on and on and on and on. Who was the first big name that you worked with that blew you away?
Oh man, that's so interesting. I got to think about that. We started off in Toronto producing Dan Hill. That was my first productions. Then the third album was Sometimes When We Touch. That was the lead-off single on an album called Longer Fuse. So let me just think now. I think the first really important musical person I met. Are you saying I met or worked with?
Well, could be both. Could be two questions, really.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I got to work with on the fourth album because Barry Mann, who of famous songwriter Barry Mann and Cynthia Weil,
right,
husband and wife team, who wrote everything from You Lost That Love and Feelin' to On Broadway to Sometimes. I'm sorry. Well, yeah, Barry co-wrote Sometimes When We Touch, and then Somewhere Out There they wrote Here You Come Again for Dolly Parton. I mean, they're literally in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and I was a huge fan of their writing. So when Dan Hill got a blind date creatively to write with Barry, it opened up the doors for me to start to work with Barry and to eventually, to produce him. And also, I'm in LA right now, and I'm going to go visit Barry tomorrow. So I would say Barry was the first legendary person that I got to work with early on. And then there were, I got to meet George Martin and spend a little time with him. And he was my he was my god as far as record producers.
That's the Beatles producer, right?
Yeah, and I think he changed the world, not just, his decision to, I got to tell him this. I said, your decision to sign these four mop tops, who really, were in their infancy. You wound up, obviously, besides musically, sort of mentoring them and bringing out these incredible records. I also said that you wound up changing the world, because the world changed completely. Everything, style, everything, politics, you name it. The Beatles changed everything. And he's so modest, and he said, in the English accent, "Oh, Fred, I didn't change the world." And I said, he was very funny. He said to me, Fred, the truth is, he said, I didn't really like their music when they auditioned for me, but I thought they might be fun to work with because they were funny guys. So I said, what the hell, I'm going to sign them. And he signed them really based on their personalities.
That's funny.
And then to finish off a great story, which I'm happy to relate, over this dinner, he said to me, Fred, he said, I really helped them a great deal. He said, but something changed. He said, first of all, he said, their growth as writers and singers and performers was exponential. But then he said, the thing that was most amazing to me, he said, I got a phone call in the evening as they were closing up and finishing Hard Day's Night. And the producer of the movie called George and said, we're going to change the title of the movie to Hard Day's Night because that's a Ringoism and we like it. So we need the boys to write a song tonight and record it tomorrow. Because literally the film is going to be out in about a month, and worldwide. And George called the boys, as he calls them, and John and Paul wrote Hard Day's Night that evening. They recorded it in the morning and were finished in the afternoon. And at that point, George said to me, at that point, Fred, I knew I'd be chasing after them. And he was right.
Yeah. Speaking to producer, musician, composer, Fred Mollin, you worked with Art Garfunkel. For the longest time, it was Simon and Garfunkel, but the emphasis always seemed to be on Paul Simon. And I recall one night watching David Letterman, and he had Garfunkel on, and Garfunkel sang Bridge Over Troubled Water. And Letterman looked at me and says, now we know who the real talent of the group is.
Well, Artie certainly had the more classically beautiful voice. Yeah.
Yeah.
But Paul Paul's probably one of the greatest songwriters that will ever live. You know?
Yeah. And Garfunkel wrote a great song called "All I Know."
Oh, he didn't write it. It was
No,
Jimmy.
he sang it, right?
Yeah, it was Jimmy Webb who wrote it.
It was Jimmy Webb who wrote it, who then did another recording with Linda Ronstadt, which you produced.
Yes, I produced Jimmy's duet with Linda, and it turned out to be Linda's last vocal because she has Parkinson's.
Yeah, which is such a sad story, but what a beautiful song. What a wonderful version.
It's one of the greatest songs ever written, and I was honored. I got to fly up. You know, Linda and I had been fans of each other, it turned out, but I had never really worked with her. And she said, because at that point she was, this was probably 2011, I think. And she said, she told Jimmy, she said, well, I'm not able to sing anymore, so I can't control my voice. I've been to neurologists. We don't know what's going on, but something's wrong. She said, but if you send Fred Mollin, because I've been working with Jimmy since 78.
Wow.
And she was a fan of mine. I didn't know. And she said, if you send Fred Mollin, I'll work with him in San Francisco to try to do the vocal, but I can't promise that I'll be able to. And I flew up there, and we just loved each other immediately. We spent the whole day working around what really was incredibly a rough session. But I got some beautiful lines, and they're all on that song. So if you want to hear a gorgeous recording that's historic, All I Know by Jimmy Webb featuring Linda is pretty well about as good as I'll ever do.
I bruise you, you bruise me. We both bruise so easily, too easily, to let it show. I love you, and it's all I know. All my plans keep falling through. All my plans, they depend on you, depend on you to help them grow. I love you, and it's all I know. When the singer's gone, let the song go on. It's a fine line between the darkness and the dawn. They say in the darkest night there's a light beyond. I love you, and it's all I know.
Carole King is one of the great songwriters of all time as well. I mean, and if you look up Carole King, Google Carole King and her credits, you'd be shocked to see how many songs she was at least in part responsible for writing, and of course one of the great song stylists of our time as well. How was she to work with?
I've never worked with her a lot. I know her, and we've spent time together, and actually had a great dinner years ago. But I've produced a couple of duets with her. Mm-hmm. And one we did, which was with, Carole King and Jerry Goffin were the husband and wife team who, again, worked out of the same publishing company at 1650 Broadway in New York, and wrote all these songs, like Will You Still Love Me Tomorrow? I'm Into Something Good by Herman's Hermits. I mean, you name it, Carole King wrote it. And her husband at that point, Jerry Goffin, was the lyricist. And so in the next cubicle, because they all wrote on demand in these little cubicles in the office. And in the other cubicles were other writers, and Barry Mann and Cynthia Weil were also husband and wife, and they were in the next cubicle. So as Carole and Jerry were writing on this little piano, and he was scribbling on something, and Carol's singing, you could hear what they're writing, and Barry and Cynthia are writing as well, trying to get the same song. like let's say Connie Francis needed a hit,
Yeah.
They all went in their cubicles and are writing it. And Barry said, Fred, I'd be hearing, goddamn Carol, I heard this melody, I heard her singing, and I had to do better than her,
Yeah.
And so anyway, it's sort of funny. But Carol, I love. She's a very deep person. She's very kind. She's, obviously just a sensationally gifted person. And she also, at age 16, a Jewish girl from Queens deciding wanted to be a pop songwriter, rock songwriter. Can you imagine, how hard the ladder was to climb then?
I can't imagine. I can't imagine. I wondered to myself, does that kind of creative collaboration still exist? Are people still holed up in offices in New York or Los Angeles or Nashville, for that matter, creating tunes specifically for artists? How does that work?
Honestly, Nashville is really the epicenter for pretty well everything record.
And people are surprised to know that. A lot of people are surprised to know that.
Well, over the years, Nashville was always known as the country music recording capital, but over the years, New York and LA, the real estate got too expensive and all the studios died and were bought up. And so Nashville became and is, truly ground zero for all things recorded music, especially with live musicians. And yes, there's also a the largest songwriting community in the world. And every day there's probably about 2,000 small offices or cubicles where people are writing a song to try to get it cut by someone like, who knows, Josh Turner, So, it is happening still every day. It's just it's a different world out there, but yes, it's especially in Nashville.
Now, are you currently working with an artist to put music together for them? Are you writing for anybody right now?
For
yourself.
I don't do a lot of writing just for the sake of it. So if an artist I'm producing, is a singer-songwriter and they decide they want to make me collaborate with them, I will gladly do it. But it really has to be, if they invite me, I don't push myself because I'm not really, I do other things better than I think as good a writer as I can be. I'm a better arranger and producer of people's music. And so I do that more. And actually the one artist I'm doing in February is M. Greiner. I'm sure you know her. She's a wonderful Canadian artist.
Mm-hmm.
And has had tremendous following in Canada. And I'm doing M's new album, and we're going to record it in Nashville. And there's a possibility I might write one song with her.
It's going to be a difficult task. I was speaking with Fred Mollin, who is a musician, composer, and also an arranger, as mentioned, composer of music and of soundtracks for film and television in the past. When you walk up to an artist or an artist approaches you and says, okay, listen, I got this idea. Here are these songs. This is what I think it should sound like. What if you're thinking to yourself, these aren't really very good at all. This is not going to happen. Because you can't just take every gig on because you got to put your name on that.
Yes. You're not going to, well, that's not true. A lot of people do because they may need the bucks. And listen, at times we all need the bucks. But if someone really doesn't have the talent and is very, very belligerent about wanting to record their own material, which may be really subpar, I probably will pass on the project because, I really can't do enough. But, if it's good enough, I can make it better with cool arrangements and bring whatever my gifts are to the table. But yes, if they're really unprofessionally written and if the person's unprofessional, it's rough. I would never do that.
Ted Woloshyn returns in a moment.
Okay, here we go down to visit our friend Tom Mahalik at Tom's Place, 190 Baldwin in the heart of Kensington Market in Toronto. Tom, of course, has the best selection of suits in the city of Toronto. But now that the winter is upon us, Tom, you need to put something on top of that beautiful suit when you go outside, and you've got some great coats.
We have some great coats that are 50 off. I just like to tell you guys a little story. I was going to switch the car at night, but then I changed my mind. I leave early in the morning, and I said to my wife, don't worry, darling, I will move the cars. Well, I went and I moved the cars. Took me about an hour. I had my sport jacket on, my beautiful sweater, and my scarf. But it wasn't enough. I was freezing. So in between trying to move the cars, I said, I got to go back to the house and grab one of those coats, one of those fabulous Tom's Place coats that are 50% off. Huge selection of coats that are 50% off, and they're only $249. I grabbed one of those coats. I put it on. I went back to the car. I didn't know how to reverse it. It took me another half an hour. But it was fine because I had my coat, I had my sweater, I had my scarf, I had my beautiful sport jacket, and a warm pair of pants. So it didn't bother me. So my wife asked me in the morning, Tom, what took you so long? Well, I said, I didn't know how to reverse it. I'll never do it again. I will listen to my wife, and I will switch while she's still there.
Tom's Place. Drop by. Coats, suits, jackets, sweaters, everything you need for the cold weather. 190 Baldwin, the heart of Kensington Market. Hey, let me take a moment to tell you about my friends at Helenda's. They are the meat people. You know, I've been a fan of their products for years now, and without a doubt, they make some of the best sausage in Ontario. They are multiple award winners, having captured the Ontario's finest meat competition's coveted Award of Excellence on 3 occasions, in addition to dozens of individual product awards. Helenda's has also received the Grand Champion ribbon at the past 2 Royal Winter Fair's ready-to-eat meat snack competitions. So whether you're preparing a charcuterie board or a full-blown sit-down dinner for your friends or family, you'll find Helenda's award-winning products at fine meat shops throughout the province, now including selected Metro, Sobeys, Fortino's, and Foodland stores, along with their 7 Helenda's locations. Their barbecued kielbasa is my favorite. On a fresh bun with horseradish, it is out of this world. But don't just take my word for it. Judge for yourself. On your barbecue, in your kitchen, or straight from the refrigerator. Helenda's, the way sausage should taste.
Now back to Ted Wallachin.
It's going to be a difficult task. I was speaking with Fred Mollin, who's a musician, composer, and also an arranger, as mentioned, composer of music and of soundtracks for film and television in the past. When you walk up to an artist or an artist approaches you and says, okay, listen, I got this idea, here are these songs, this is what I think it should sound like. What if you're thinking to yourself, these aren't really very good at all. This is not going to happen. Because you can't just take every gig on, because you got to put your name on that.
Well, yes. I mean, you're not going to. Well, that's not true. A lot of people do because they may need the bucks. And listen, at times we all need the bucks. But if someone really doesn't have the talent and is very, very belligerent about wanting to record their own material, which may be really subpar, I probably will pass on the project because, I really can't do enough. But, if it's good enough, I can make it better with cool arrangements and bring whatever my gifts are to the table. But yes, if they're really unprofessionally written and if the person's unprofessional, it's rough. I would never do that.
Is there somebody whose music you really admire that you haven't worked with but would like to, either as a collaborator in terms of either a producer or a musician or a composer?
Well, that's an awesome question because, I can run the gamut. Like, for instance, I really would still love to produce James Taylor and a lot of the artists you mentioned, the Barbra Streisands and a few others. I mean, those were duets that I produced as opposed to a whole album. But I would love to produce James. I've met him a couple times, and I just thought it would be a real dream for me to produce him. Obviously, if you could produce Paul McCartney, that would be great. But, and there's other artists who you probably don't know. There's an artist named Gabriel Kahane, Kahane. And Gabriel is one of the most brilliant, absolutely brilliant geniuses I've ever heard. Vocally and lyrically and musically, he is significantly as important as a Gershwin, except that Gershwin could only do one thing and Gabriel can do everything. Wow. I would love to work with Gabriel. We're friends, and but he's so talented that he doesn't need anyone. I mean, he's one of those kind of guys.
I hate guys like that.
Yeah, me too. And I also love. There's a guy named Justin Curry, who is the lead singer of a band named Delamitri from Scotland. Mm. And his solo albums, Justin Curry's solo albums, are absolutely mind blowing. I mean, again, I put him up there with John Lennon. I think he's absolutely a genius and vocally incredible. And I've done some work with him. I've done some duets with him, and we talk about the possibility of doing an album together. So maybe in about a year, I might do one with him.
As a musician and as a producer and as a consumer of music, what are your thoughts on some of these reality television shows like The Voice, The Singer, The Masked Singer? Those kind of, they're really talent shows is what they are.
Well, I mean, they're really game shows, you know.
Yeah.
I don't like them. I find that, you know, you can call me sort of unfortunately a little bit mired in the past, but, you know, a lot of these people who have won these things, you know, The Voice and American Idol, etc., you know, very few of them have gone on to anything because they didn't have the years of honing their craft and becoming really good at what they did. Yeah. They just won a game show. And so to me, there are, of course, exceptions. Kelly Clarkson happens to be an incredibly gifted singer and artist.
Carrie Underwood.
And writer. And Carrie's a really good singer. I mean, she's not a writer, but she's a really good singer. And there's a few people, you know, who have definitely, you know, I'm glad they made it because they deserved it, but not a big fan of sort of getting your career through a game show.
Well, I'll tell you something, Fred. I've asked this question of many musicians that I've interviewed over the years, and the vast majority say the same thing to you, saying that it's not reality. It's not a reality show at all. In fact, it's totally fanciful.
Yeah, it is, and it's also very, very, it's hokum, you know. But listen, occasionally there's someone who's really gifted, and you get a chance to see them. But it's not on my watch list. I don't care about it.
Yeah. I think I never liked the shows to begin with. I mean, I understand that there was some great talent, but I think what really turned me the worst was The Masked Singer. I'm thinking, my God, it's just
it's
so
funny. I actually, you know, I'm best friends with Paul Schaefer. I've known Paul since he taught me how to play bass in Toronto in 1972, and we're still great close friends. And Paul was a masked singer. I guess at the end of the series. And then I also produced Jackie Evancho's new album. And Jackie was also a masked singer person. But I've never seen the show. You know?
Yeah. I just thought, what's next? The drunk singer. Let's get somebody completely hammered, shit-faced. You know, sitting there and says, okay, who was that piss take? You know?
Yeah. Oh, God. Yeah, it ain't for me. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I guess not. What are you working on right now?
Well, I am doing a 2 CD boxed set for Japan, where I'm sort of going through all of Jimmy Webb's demos and rarities and outtakes, etc. Because I work with Jimmy almost all my adult life, and so you know, I've been given the responsibility of going through, you know, hundreds of tapes to do a beautiful sort of legacy box set of all these very, very rare pieces, and that'll be out in Japan, I guess, in March, but then it'll be, you know, available as an import.
Did you produce his last album, 2-3 years ago?
The last album that came out was called Slipknot, and it was actually, I think Elektra gave him $10,000 in total for an idea that he had, which was basically, because he's an incredibly unique piano player. I mean, Jimmy he plays piano like he's orchestrating. It's incredible. And he had an idea, which he called me about. And he said, Freddie, you know, I'm thinking of doing an album of just other people's songs and just do them on piano instrumentally. And I'm like, that's an interesting idea. Meanwhile, I'm thinking to myself, you know, this thing will never sell because, you know, first of all, it's instrumental. Secondly, you know, who wants the greatest songwriter in the world to be playing other people's songs instrumentally? Anyway, it's a very cool record, Slipknot. But he had to call me and say, listen, I got $10,000 and I'm going to need every cent of it to do it myself. And I said, well, that's fine. You know, you do it. So he produced it himself.
But you did an album, the one prior to that?
I've done 5 with Jimmy.
Yeah, because I think not that album, but the album prior to that, he was on my show when I was doing the radio program, and I noticed that it was produced by you, and I went, "My God, I should call Freddie." And of course, I didn't, because
I mean, it could have been any one of the 5 that I've produced for him.
Yeah, maybe. Here's a question, and I know that you're moving away from scoring film and television, but when you got the job for Friday the 13th, this was for Friday the 13th number 2 and number 3. So
no, it was actually part 7 and part 8.
Part 7 and part 8. Okay, so there had already been done a number of them beforehand. How much of the music out of that do you use? Do you incorporate? How similar does it have to be? Do you want to stay farther away? How does that whole process work out?
Well, I had scored a TV series for Paramount called Friday the 13th, the series,
right,
which ran from 87 to 90, and it was a 1-hour episodic series that wasn't at all about slashers and Jason. It was really more like every week there was a new story because these people were chasing down cursed items. So they just used the name Friday the 13th to get people interested, but it had nothing to do with the movies. However, the executive producer, Frank Mancuso Jr., I guess loved what I did. And he said, hey, on the next movie that I'm producing, which is part 7, I would love you to score it. And it turned out that budget-wise, the guy who had scored all the previous 1 through 6, Harry Manfredini, they had enough music of his that they could library into the new movie, or so they thought. And so this was, again, probably, Ted, around the time we were working together, probably 87 or something like that. And so I got a call, and the call was, we were able to library about half of the movie with existing cues from previous movies from Harry. And Harry used a small orchestra. And so I said, okay. And they said, but you will have to, if you want to take this on, use your synthesizers and samplers and get close to his orchestrated sound and his thing and score the rest of the movie that we don't have the music perfect for. So I wound up sharing a credit. And so it says music by Harry Manfredini and Fred Mollin. And I just did about half the music score like that. So I tried to evoke sort of in the same spirit of what he did. Yeah. And then I did part 8 on my own. And that one I had a little more leeway to do more of what I would want to do. But again, Ted, those were, I did a lot of horror stuff and I did a lot of sci-fi stuff. And the horror slasher stuff really doesn't work for me, but it was a great gig. It was really fun to do, and I loved doing it.
And then conversely, you did a whole bunch of stuff for Disney. A lot of lullabying going on over the years, which led to a CD called the Martha's Vineyard Lullaby Album, gentle, soothing instrumental music for baby and you. I have yet to hear it yet. I got to tell you, I just got it.
Well, don't operate heavy machinery while you listen to that lullaby album.
Okay.
It's a musical instrumental quaalude.
Okay, excellent.
No, actually, I wish we had some. No, the thing is, I did in 1998. I started what was turning out. I didn't know it, but it turned out to be a series of lullaby albums, instrumental music for young children to sleep better with. And the first one, Disney's Lullaby album, came out in 99, I think, and it's gone gold and then some, and it's a beautiful record. And it's just basically, either Disney songs or well-known songs done extremely, just quiet and gentle, and it just helps the child go to sleep. And so I became sort of the lullaby king. And I'll tell you a great thing here. My daughter, Lily, who's now, she was born in 87, Ted. So there's another great part of that year for me. So she's 34 now. And so in 98, she was 11, way past the lullaby time. And my studio in Toronto was in the basement underneath her bedroom. And so her lullabies as a small child were hearing dissonant bang, stuff for all sorts of horror movies that would emanate from the basement up to her room. So her lullabies were basically horrific, dissonant, scoring.
Yeah.
And so here I am in '99 getting these accolades from everywhere, and then doing my part 2 for Disney. And my daughter said, "Nice timing, Dad," because literally she missed out on it.
And you're it's great to be a kid CD. Do your grandkids like it?
My grandkids love it. They love the Kitty Cat song. They love Playtime. Their favorite is one that Karen sings, which is "Dance to a Happy Song," which is sort of a disco thing. And Carol does a little Ethel Merman at times, but it's really quite good. And that's their favorite. That's the hit off the album as far as my grandchildren are. But it meant so much to me to do that particular record, because I felt like young children really need, and still do right now.
Yeah, for sure.
Something to look forward to right now.
Absolutely. And one of the great things about the CD as well is it's got 3 interactive bonus tracks that kids can join in and sing along with.
That's right. Yeah, we did some extra bonus things. So we leave, we leave parts of this, like on the Kitty Cat song, they can make their own meows and sing along.
Where can people get a hold of these things? Are they available at most record stores? Or are they better off going to your website?
I think Sam the Record Man and A&A, I think they can. Oh, wait a second. Am I in the wrong? Wait a second. Did I take? I think I took the Prelude.
The Sam the Record Man sign is still around.
Yeah,
and I think the A&A sign is around as well.
Yeah, the sign. No, listen. These days you either stream it, download it, or you go to Amazon. Really, and I would prefer you go to Amazon and get the beautiful cover and the booklet, and has all the lyrics and all that stuff. But again, going back to what we said early on, which is I go to a lot of trouble when I do my kids' music, and I've done a ton for Disney, and I've done, honestly, I'm very, very comfortable in writing music for young children and producing music for young children. But I'm really careful to make music that the parents won't hate.
Yeah.
Because literally I do remember, and I'm going to use his name, I'm sorry, but I remember that my children, when they were young, and don't forget I'm a musician, so it's, forget it. So they were listening and fell in love with certain music that was played in their school, and they fell in love with Raffi.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, Raffi's made $1 billion, but, he was a regular singer-songwriter, but he couldn't make it, and he became a kids artist, and he's wonderful. But some of those songs are maddening, and Sharon, Lois, and Bram, same thing, So as a parent, worse, as a professional musician, I couldn't listen to that material. Yeah. So everything I do for children has to have a certain amount of sophistication so that actually the parents won't hate it.
You want to lose your mind next time you get a chance when you're with your grandchildren. Go to YouTube and look up Baby Sharks.
Oh, I know. I know. Absolutely.
That song, I've almost lost it last time.
Well, it's really not. We really can't call it a song, can we? Yeah.
I don't know what it is. Whatever it is, it's got a melody, and maybe it's not a song. But it's made them billions of millions of dollars.
Oh my God! It's been downloaded and it's been streamed, 100 million times. Yeah.
And it'll lead you to drinking hard drugs, I believe. Fred Mollin, it has been a real buzz catching up with you, reminiscing a little bit and talking about all the great work that you've done and the work that you continue to do. And I hope we can continue to.
And wait a second, and we didn't even get a chance to go back to 1987 when you and I were. When you hosted, I was your Paul Schaefer.
That's right. The show was called "It's Only Rock and Roll." We had a lot of great artists on there. Stevie Ray Vaughan appeared on the show, right?
Sure did. Yeah. We had some fantastic times and fantastic.
And Fred was given the moniker by one of the producers, the late Joe Baudelaire, as he was referred to as the Surgeon General of rock and roll.
Yeah. God rest Joe. Yeah. That's
guy.
Right. No, we Ted and I, we had so much fun.
We did. We had Mike Myers was on the show as a regular.
We discovered Mike Myers.
I know. And now he doesn't know who we are.
Well, he does, believe it or not. I ran into him and he
Oh, you do? Oh, good.
Yeah, I ran into him about 10 years ago and he said, your show bought my first furniture.
Really?
Yep.
I didn't know IKEA was around then.
Yeah, I think he just bought it at like some other place, but yeah, he was very kind. He gave my children autographs, and it was very sweet.
That's good to hear. I'm glad to hear about his success. He was tremendous amount of fun to watch perform and to work with as well. As were you, my friend. And again, I hope we get to see each other in person soon once this thing is this new abnormal, as I like to call it, has subsided somewhat, and you make your way back to Toronto, or I make my way to Nashville. I've been to Nashville once, and I actually quite loved the city. It was a lot of fun.
Well, we would love to see you in Nashville, and I will see you soon, absolutely. And next time in Toronto, I'm hunting you down.
All right. Fred Mollin, all the best.
Thank you, buddy.
Thank you.
The Ted Wallisham Podcast has been brought to you by Tom's Place. For the finest in men's clothing at unbeatable prices, it's Tom's Place at 190 Baldwin in the heart of Kensington Market. Tom's Place will suit you. And Helenda's, the meat people. Enjoy their award-winning products at selected Metro, Sobeys, Fortino's, and Foodland locations. Helenda's, the way sausage should taste. The Ted Wallisham Podcast is produced by Joey Roselli. Technical production by Paul Gatt. Music by Bike Thieves. I'm Becky Coles. Submit your questions and comments to ted@twmedia.ca.